Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and families, welcome to the 9th annual Veterans Day program at E Rivers Elementary School. My name is John Waller. I am the principal. We are so pleased to have the 4th and 5th graders join us in the gym this morning, as well as our younger grades, K through 3. They are viewing this program via Zoom, which is why we're toggling between 2 microphones, and it's a little bit cumbersome. Thank you for understanding. Thank you to all the veterans and their families who are here today. We are honored to have the opportunity to recognize you and your sacrifices. In fact, E Rivers is proud to honor a grand total of 64 veterans this morning. And now we welcome the North Atlanta Junior JROTC for the presentation of the colors. Now, please join me in welcoming Caden Carter and Olivia Bailey, who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in English and Spanish.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y la república que representa una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos. You may be seated.
Thank you, Caden and Olivia. Can you tell we're a dual language immersion school? All those kids knew Spanish, this Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish. And now Sonia Hill will sing America the Beautiful, accompanied by her father, Christopher Hall, and Miss Weingart. Thank you again to the JROTC. Thank you, Sonia. We'd like to begin our program today by remembering a veteran in our E-Rivers family who passed away earlier this year, George Mick Todd. Mick was a U.S. Navy veteran and father to two E-Rivers students, Savannah and Audrey. Mick served as a United States Navy corpsman attached to infantry Marines for 6 years. He provided emergency medical care to sick and injured service members in the field, and his battalion received the Presidential Unit Citation with Distinction and Valor for exceptional service as part of Operation Khanjar during the 2009 surge in Afghanistan. Mick served as the Honorary Grand Marshal of the 2021 E-Rivers Veterans Day celebration. During his remarks then, he told us what an enormous impact his service had had on his life. We are honored to have Mick's wife, Abby, as well as Savannah and Audrey with us today. Please know Please know, Abby, Savannah, and Audrey, today that how grateful we are for Mick's service and how appreciative we are of his strong support of our Veterans Day celebration for so many years. We send a great big E-Rivers hug and love to you this morning. The E-Rivers Veterans Day celebration was started in 2014 by former E-Rivers Girl Scout Troop 13536. These former students who are now seniors in high school, and they're now seniors in high school, and we're excited to have several of them joining us today. Speaking on behalf of the troop, please join me in welcoming Dorothy Warner to the stage, as well as the other troop members who are here today. Come around this way.
Thank you, Dr. Waller, and hello, everyone. It's been so good to see so many dear friends from our years at E-Rivers. It is inspiring to see all of you, but especially our veterans. We want to thank you and your families for your many sacrifices and service to our country. On behalf of Alexis, Elizabeth, Kinsey, Rudy, and the rest of Girl Scout Troop 13536, thank you for having us. We are We are really honored to be here and appreciate Ms. Watkins' invitation to be a part of today's program. Our original troop had 15 members and a number of them have moved out of Atlanta, so we are proud to represent them today. It's crazy to think that this whole thing started with the opportunity to earn a flag badge. Knowing how underappreciated many in the military often feel, we decided we should try to organize something in recognition of Veterans Day. We were aware of another school in Atlanta with a very successful Veterans Day program, so we suggested to Principal Rogers that we try to do something similar at Rivers. Fortunately, he agreed right away and gave us a lot of support, just as Dr. Waller did later when he arrives. We knew that the Boy Scouts had more experience with flag presentations, so it seemed only natural to invite them to partner with us. Through that effort, we had the good fortune of meeting Mr. Slaughter, and the Veterans Day flag ceremony was born. Then we invited all of the Rivers community to let us know of any veterans they wished to honor in their own families. We realized we had really struck a nerve when it quickly became evident that every corner of the Rivers community, whether students, faculty, administrators, staff, and parents, would be represented through those veterans being honored. I had no idea when we organized the first Veterans Day celebration years ago that this tradition would become such a fixture in the Rivers calendar. We are really grateful to Ms. Siegel and Ms. Watkins for working so hard to bring it to its current level of impact. The whole Rivers community can take a lot of pride in this event. Congratulations on another successful year. And again, thank you to each of you who has served our country so valiantly as a member of our armed forces.
I get to see. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Great that they're seniors, and it's always great to have the opportunity to welcome E-Rivers alumni back to our wonderful school, our school that was founded in 1917. Each of you were definitely practicing IB traits when you all founded this Veterans Day program. Also, would like to give a special thank you to Betsy Varner and Kim Siegel for all they did to get the Veterans Day program started and off the ground. You all were an integral part of establishing this tradition. Okay, each year there's a school-wide Veterans Day art and essay contest leading up to Veterans Day. The winners of the art contest have their work displayed in the lobby. And now we will hear from the winners of the essay contest as they share their essays about what freedom means to them. So we'll start with Evan Kobler.
That no matter the color of your skin, where you come from, or your gender, and no matter what you do, we should all be able to experience the things that life holds. No matter your desire, no matter your journey, it doesn't matter the sport or thing you do, you can accomplish it with freedom. You can accomplish anything you want if you give it your all. I also think that freedom means that you are yourself, that you decide your path, and there are different paths. They could be long or short, but all paths will be difficult. I think it means to not be ruled by someone else, but only by yourself. You're the ruler of yourself. That's what freedom means to me.
And now Sonia Hill. Sonia Hill and Mia Ross, I'm sorry.
My siblings to our grandmother. Therefore, our siblings were apart from our mother, mind you, at a very young age. Freedom matters to me. You should be able to be with your mother until a certain age. I think people should be able to have to spend time with their family and not be worried about them. Freedom means you should be able to be free. If it wasn't for slavery and unfair governments, you wouldn't have to write about this. Now you know what freedom matters. Thank you.
And now both sides.
He was well prepared because he went to OCS. OCS stands for Officers Candidate School, a school for military training. It was hard because my grandpa was only allowed to sleep when the soldiers in the queue and they were firing missiles to the other side. He was a spy in the Desert Storm War. He collected clues and translated words into human intelligence from the enemy because he did not know how to speak their language. The two wars were very bad, but he still got through them like we should today. I am inspired by my grandpa and want to make the world a better place. I want to honor the freedom that our ancestors fought so hard to get. My great-grandpa fought in World War II. He left the United States for 5 years to be on the front lines of the war. He spent most of his time in the European front, taking care of the soldiers in his battalion. The biggest battle he fought in was the Battle of the Bulge. It was very difficult because it was during cold winter and got down to 20 degrees. Many of the men did not have good boots or socks, and their feet became very cold with frostbite. Many men froze to death, as well as a large number of men being killed in the war. When the war was over, my great-grandpa could not come home right away. He went into Germany to help the town rebuild. He handed out food and money to the civilians. He was also the paymaster on the boat coming back to America, to the United States. He paid for the soldiers for fighting and honored the ones who did not make it back. We have to use our freedom that our ancestors gave us so we cannot waste it or disrespect it. That is why on Veterans Day, you need to honor the soldiers who did not make it back and respect the ones that did. Always remember that they fought so hard to give you something very important, your freedom.
Let's be bold. You're awesome.
Nice work, nice work. You make E-Rivers proud. Thank you so much. We're honored to have several special guests here with us today. This is the first for Dr. Margot Retha Wolfuk, APS Associate Superintendent for the North Atlanta and Washington clusters. Dr. Wolfuk. You don't. Sure. You want to say something? Yes.
So good morning. I didn't know that I was all of the respect and admiration for our veterans. This is personal for me, and I dare the Army. My son is right now somewhere who knows where in Green Beret School, and to see us honoring all the veterans who have given so much, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to this wonderful school for making this happen.
Thank you, Dr. Wolfuk. Next, we have Ms. Sherry Forrest, Special Assistant to APS Superintendent, Dr. Danielle Battle.
Good morning. So I've already talked but I am so honored to be here today on behalf of our Institute Superintendent, Dr. Danielle Battle, and to be here with all of you. I am a granddaughter of an Army vet, and I am a wife of an Air Force vet. So near and dear to my heart. So I just am going to read a poem. For Veterans Day, our grandchildren always send something to my husband. And so this was one of the poems that they found. So I thought it would be befitting. So here we go. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answer to a service call. Soldiers young and soldiers old fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived and some have died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all our rights. They fought through many days and nights. And though we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same. Thank you.
And then we also welcome Jennifer McDonald, former E. Rivers parent and current APS Board of Education representative for District 4.
I'm so grateful. And I can't wait for the parade because we'll be laughing and smiling then. I cannot wait to stop crying through this entire ceremony. But Dr. Waller, thank you for really keeping this tradition alive because it is so special. And Megan, I know how hard you've worked to make it just one more perfect event. And it's my favorite event that E. Rivers does. So thank you for including me.
Thank you all. Thank you. We're thrilled that each of you is here today. Now we have a special video put together by the Atlanta History Center's Oral History and Genealogy Director, Ms. Sue Veerhoff.
Now that was my life lesson. I really didn't. But I definitely this is my life. I died in the young age. Back about the times those oceans and stuff. I can hear my condition on before I got to the fire extinguisher. And I don't think a lot of it how to find out describe that sensation. The relief provided me the comes instantly. But then also the emotion kind of aspect of it came in and out. If they got to me, and I feel like this now, then maybe I still have a chance. We have my family, yeah, future. You're all started. I'm ready for something. a little different. But what really kind of bothers me is like, I could have 3 veterans. You know, two might be suffering from, you know, post-traumatic stress, one maybe have a TBI, traumatic brain injury. And then there's me, the only one who thinks, and they just forget about those guys. Those guys' service is not different than mine. You know, and I have, you know, guys that have multiple deployments always coming out to me and saying, you know, my service isn't like yours. All your service is the same as mine. I had one that data exchange, you know, this, but the actual service, serving your country is no different.
I believe that what I would like for people to do is that the freedoms that we enjoy today do not come about by accident, that they were bought and paid for. I believe that free society, time to time, need reminders that the freedoms are limited. Today didn't have about it.
I'm very proud of them that I am certain. It was the best learning experience I ever had. The only thing I would hope and pray is that our people, our citizens, go up and say thank you for your service.
So we know that some of you came from very long distances to be here today, and we're so proud to have each of you on campus for this special occasion. We're especially honored to have APS Chief of Police, Ronald Applin, join us today to serve as the honorary Grand Marshal and keynote speaker for our Veterans Day celebration. Chief Applin is now going to say a few words about the impact his service has had on his life.
Watching, I think your appreciation for those services has been overwhelming for me in such a good way. I am truly honored to be here today. I'm truly honored to be selected or asked to serve as the honorary
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal. Yeah. This is the full circle name. I attended I went to a school called Martin Luther King Elementary. It's no longer here anymore. Part of that, they built a school. Now it's middle school. Martin Luther Elementary. Back in the middle school, we had elementary and high school. So I went to Harvard, Charles Maybe back, and I heard everybody went to the 6th. But my time there was impacted by seeing some of the gentlemen here in the talk, who's teaching the bureau to see. Was really impacted by them. And I'll add to that, my brother, Paul, was also impacted by them. My brother was serving the United States Army. He's buried on the next cemetery. I go visit him every single year since he passed. My father served in the rear in the United States Army. I deviated a little bit and decided I was waiting. That's a good thing. But I was impressed or impacted positively by the WROTC, and that's what kind of made me want to join the military. It was that and seeing my father and my brother who both served. In the WROTC, I was sergeant major at one point, and then I became the battalion commander, and I became the brigade commander. It was that was a long time ago, back in 1960. That had changed, and then that was the change where they brought it back. So it's a full circle. I left the Marines. I served the Marines in 1988 to 1986, and 1988 to 1996 in the reserves. I was a corporal when I left. I had a few things I wanted to say, but you guys know what the veteran is. What's that? What's that? Say it out loud. Okay. Anyone who served in the U.S. military is that. Anyone who served in the U.S. military is that. How many branches of the military are? 66. I said six, I like that number. We're gonna see. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and what else is there? Space Force. New branch of the military, Space Force. So we have 6 branches of the military, and all of these 6 branches of the military defend our freedom. How cool is that? All 6 branches of the military defend our freedom. All around the world, in the air, on the land, at sea, and now in space. If you're speaking to somebody, you guys already got this already, you already know my business. If you're speaking to somebody who is a veteran, who's been in the military, and one of the things you can do to really make their day is ask them what branch of service you're in. They're gonna want to answer the question, I guarantee you, they're gonna answer the question. But they would love to be able to share with you some of the things that they did while they were in the service. So ask that question. You know what Veterans Day is on. It's on the 11th. How do you think it came about? I'll share it. I got a hand raised. What do you think? Okay, after World War II, they decided to celebrate it. That China's lost a good job. Good job. Back in 1918, after World War I, there was an armistice that ended the World War I in Versailles. An armistice is an agreement between 2 opposing sides. So there were a lot of people who were happy that the war was over. And then November 11th, 1919, became Armistice Day. And then back in 1954, like you said, 1954, President Eisenhower renamed the holiday Veterans Day to celebrate it as it is today. All right? It has been real cool that Veterans Day honors everyone who served in the military. It is real cool. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing today. It definitely makes my time that I've served that much more special. It really does. Makes it that much special. The military, the work of the military, I'll be blessed to be the chief of police for the police today. And truly paved the way for me to be in this position. Everything that I've learned, all the good and the bad things I've been through, I appreciate it. I wouldn't wish it on anyone else, but you should never have to go through some of the things that some of our folks who serve our folks, all of us who serve the military, have had to deal with. But we're doing it because you want to be free, you want to be able to do the things that you love, have the things that you want, and have all the opportunities you can have without someone telling you how to do it. But thank you so much again, you Rivers, for our opportunities.
Thank you, Chief Allen. Your service, your past and present service, we appreciate you. My glasses on. In fact, we have a lot of special people to thank for putting together today's program. Please take a moment to review the names in your program of all the wonderful people in our eRivers family who helped put this great event together. Next, we want to take a moment to thank a veteran who supported us from the beginning. Mr. Kwame Slaughter. Mr. Slaughter's youngest child, Christian, is a 5th grader. So this is his last year at eRivers, and Mr. Slaughter is going to give us just a few brief words about his service.
Dr. Fowler, the Sheriff Force, Chief Allen, Chief of Police, Dr. Waller, and all the veterans, family, and friends. Welcome to the ceremony. I'm gonna be really brief. So I didn't remember, I'm glad that you told the number of years, because I'm doing some of that, how long we're doing. But it started when my son, was also here in Rivers. And somebody came up with a great idea to do the ceremony, and I'll show you, it's amazing. It has went from beginning to where it is now. This is a great ceremony, and we really appreciate, he really put this on. As far as I know, it's probably the best, the largest, they ceremony in the history of the river. Let me tell you a little bit about myself before I begin to play. It's around 3 times. There are many different, genre from drill sergeant to a mixing member to, both city training out, both, here. One thing I was showing you is that none of that could have been possible if it wasn't for them. Right? Because my mother like, when my school had JROTC, she was like, why don't you join JROTC? I look at her and say, Mom, why? I'm going to school to play ball. I'm not going to the hospital. Things and plans. So we always go that down a plan. And you see that sometimes the need plan because it was a plan, they not work. So you gotta have some form of kind of to ensure that you will stay looking at this. So. And one thing I was driving home, but I didn't stop. I had my mind, no disrespect to the Navy or the Marines. I was like, I'm not going to the Navy or the Marines, it's gonna be Army and Air Force, and it's having to stop at the Army food first. Next thing you know, I was signed up for 2 years after 2 years service, and 2 years later I was signed. And lo and behold, I retired and become JROTC for medical students at the family hospital. I've been for about 12 years, and I'll say it's very rewarding, but what's more rewarding is that we get to see the impact that we put on each cadets and everyone in the school that we touch each and every day. And one day that will be your better. Don't be afraid to serve, whether it's the Army, whether it's your community, whether it's your school, whether it's your job, your parents, whatever. Service is needed at all levels of life, whether it's the military or whatnot. So always do your best. Always be a good citizen. Follow rules, regulations, follow along, do your best. Try to make the best grades you can, because one day it's gonna be off. Some guys like going to school, love success. So it wasn't simple you run to school, the odds but it wasn't simple life are greater. So always do your best. Thank God for every day that you have on this earth. And I love you, and you have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter, and thank you for all of your support over the years, these 9 years. Now we're going to introduce our 5th grade Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts for a special presentation.
Us to show appreciation for the accomplishments and sacrifice of U.S. military, including those who have served in the U.S. Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. For those of you who have served in the military, please accept our warmest gratitude. As you may know, over the time, poppy has become the traditional symbol for Memorial Day and even Veterans Day. From 1914 to 1918, World War I took a greater human toll than any previous conflict, with some 8.5 million soldiers dying of battlefield injuries or disease. As it was known, also ravaged the landscape of Western Europe. Flanders, or northern Belgium. The brutal clashes between the Allied and Central Power soldiers destroyed the fields, the forests, and tearing up trees and wreaking havoc on the soil beneath. But in the warm early spring of 1915, bright red flower began peeking through the battle-scarred land. These were the papaveros, also known as the red poppy, the Flanders poppy, and the corn poppy, and the corn rose. The brightly colored flower is actually classified as a weed that makes sense given to its tenacious nature.
In fact, after World War I, the poppy not only grew, it flourished in Europe. From the dirt and mud, beautiful red poppies grew everywhere. Scientists attributed the growth to soils in France and Belgium, becoming enriched with lime from the rubble left by the war. From the devastated landscape of the battlefields, the red poppy would grow, and thanks to a famous poem, become a powerful symbol of re-embrace. Thus, the red poppy came to symbolize the blood shed during battle. Following the publication of the wartime poem in Flanders Fields, the tradition of the poppy is believed to have been inspired by this poem written by officer and medical doctor Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, MD, while serving on the front lines. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae was a Canadian who served as the brigade surgeon for an Allied artillery unit, and he was second in command of the 1st Brigade Canadian Field Artillery during the Battle of Ypres in April and May of 1915. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae spotted a cluster of poppies that spring of 1915, shortly after the Second Battle of Ypres. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae tended to the wounded and got a first-hand look at the devastation of that clash, in which the Germans used lethal chlorine gas for the first time in the war. Some 87,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing in the battle, as well as 37,000 on the German side. A friend of McCrae's, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer, was among those who died. It is believed that the death of this friend was the inspiration for McCrae's now famous poem in Flanders Fields.
Stories vary on how the first draft of the poem was written, but one account says that Lieutenant Colonel McCrae was seen writing the poem the next day while looking at his friend's grave among the vivid red poppies that were springing up throughout the cemetery. Struck by the sight of the bright red blooms on broken ground, McCrae wrote in Flanders Field, in which he channeled the voice of the fallen soldiers buried under those hardy poppies. Published in Punch magazines in late 1915s, the poem would be used at countless memorial ceremonies and became one of the most famous works of art to emerge from the Great War. Across the Atlantic, a woman named Moina Belly Michael read in Flanders Field in the pages of Ladies' Home Journal that November, just 2 days before the armistice. A professor at the University of Georgia at the time the war broke out, Miss Michael had taken a leave of absence to volunteer at the New York headquarters of the Young Women's Christian Association, which trained and sponsored workers overseas. Inspired by McCrae's verses, Miss Michael wrote her own poem in response, which she called "We Shall Keep Faith." As a sign of this faith and in remembrance of the sacrifices of Flanders Field, Miss Michael vowed to always wear a red poppy. Miss Michael found an initial batch of fabric blooms for herself and her colleagues at a department store. After the war ended, she returned to Athens, Georgia, and came up with the idea of making and selling red silk poppies to raise money to support the returning veterans.
Miss Michael's campaign to create a national symbol for remembrance, a poppy in the colors of the Allied nations' flags, entwined around a victory torch, didn't get very far at first. Then Miss Michael teamed up with a French woman, Madame Anna Guerin, They began encouraging people around the world to use the red Flanders poppy as a way of remembering those who had suffered during war. In the mid-1920s, Miss Michael managed to get Georgia's branch of the Veterans Group, the American Legion, to adopt the poppy as its symbol. Soon after that, the poppy became the official flower of the American Legion. The American Legion voted to use the poppy as the official U.S. national emblem of remembrance when its members convened in Cleveland on September 27, 1920. In 1924, the distribution of poppies became a national program of the American Legion. Since that day, the poppy has officially come to memorialize soldiers who fought and died during war. Today, we honor our nation's veterans when we remember that the red poppy symbolizes honoring the fallen. Through our remembrance of the poppy, we also wish to express our immense gratitude and appreciation of those veterans who are a part of our E-Rivers family and for all veterans who have worn our nation's uniform.
We hope you enjoy our presentation of Lieutenant Colonel McCrae's poem, In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. And now, please join us as we recognize our veterans.
You're gonna tell them when their name is called to come up. Just put it right here, I guess.
All right, all right, veterans, if you can just, when you hear your name called, if you'll come up here and take a picture with Dr. Waller in front of the flag and your family members, and we have a little gift for you. We also have your picture that you have out on the wall. We have a copy for you to take with you, as well as a copy that was made by the Girl Scouts. Ronald Applett, U.S. Marine Corps, Chief of Police for Atlanta Public Schools. James E. Bagley, U.S. Air Force, grandfather of Ashton Bagley. Robert Bailey, U.S. Army, father of Olivia Bailey. Fred Benner, U.S. Army, father-in-law of Miss Benner. Eric Bentz, U.S. Air Force, uncle of Heidi and Taylor Coles. Peter Bentz, U.S. Army, great-grandfather of Heidi and Taylor Coles. Charles Blair, U.S. Air Force, great-grandfather of Charlie and Watson Blair. Joe Herbert Bland, U.S. Navy, great-grandfather of Ellie and Elise Hawthorne. Russell Boston, U.S. Air Force, husband of Miss Boston. William Harold Bowser, U.S. Army, father of Miss Bowser. Bethany and John Campbell, U.S. Army, niece and nephew-in-law of Coach Chartier. Warren Kate, U.S. Air Force, Airman First Class, great-grandfather of Dev Chopra. Robert Chartier, U.S. Army, father of Coach Chartier. Hal Chase, U.S. Marine Corps, great-grandfather of Chase, Emery, and Brown Iverson. Carl Herman Davis, U.S. Army, great-grandfather of Luke and Catherine DeBardlin. Frank Disney, U.S. Air Force, grandfather of Frida. T.W. Bill Daugherty, U.S. Army, great-grandfather of Estelle, Foster, and Pierce Van Kirk. Neelam Gia, U.S. Public Health Service Commander, mother of Avani Gia Patel. Joseph Gordon, U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force, flight officer, father of Miss Jacobs. Chris Hall, U.S. Army, father of Sonia Chris Hill, U.S. Army, father of Sonia Hill. Thomas Andrew Jackson, U.S. Air Force, great-grandfather of Luke and Catherine DeBardlin. James T. Kerr, Jr., U.S. Army, grandfather of Blake and Ellis Kerr. Charity King, U.S. Army, mother of Symphony Reyes. Anthony Lefebvre, U.S. Air Force, grandfather of Dev Chopra. Seaver Lippitt, U.S. Army, father of Grant Lippitt. George Malot, U.S. Air Force, great-grandfather of Estelle, Foster, and Pierce Van Kirk. Malcolm Mather, U.S. Air Force, senior airman, father of Miss Mather. David Montgomery, U.S. Army, grandfather of Caden Carter. Michael Morris, U.S. Air Force, uncle of Heidi and Taylor Coles. David Morton, U.S. Army, father of Madison Morton. Charles O'Neill Nicholson, U.S. Army, great-grandfather of Ellen Elise Hawthorne. Dennis J. Ortiz, U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel, father of David Ortiz. Leslie Ortiz, U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel, mother of David C. Ortiz. Michael Philip Palma, U.S. Army, grandfather of Mercy Palma. George Panos, U.S. Army, grandfather of Brett and J.T. Panos. Robert R. Panzer, U.S. Marine Corps, father of Miss Roberts. Robert Proud, U.S. Navy, grandfather of Jack and Annabella Sago. Vincent Rogers, U.S. Army, First Sergeant JROTC at Therrell High School. Maurice Ross, U.S. Air Force, father of Mia and Aria Ross. Tina Ross, U.S. Air Force, mother of Mia and Aria Ross. Mitsu Raymond Sato, U.S. Marine Corps, uncle of Mao Sato and brother-in-law of Miss Sato. Angel Simon, U.S. Navy, cousin of Hunter and Owen Simon Schumann. Robert F. Sipe, U.S. Navy, Petty Officer First Class, great-grandfather of Bo Sipe. Jesse Sladek, U.S. Army, father of Braxton, Henry, and Mariel Sladek. Lynn Sladek, U.S. Army captain, mother of Braxton, Henry, and Muriel Sladek. Kwame Slaughter Sr., U.S. Army, First Sergeant, father of Christian Slaughter. John Raymond Stevenson Jr., U.S. Navy, grandfather of Lizzie and JoJo Stevenson. Michael Stower, U.S. Marine Corps, captain, father of Katie and Lily Stower. Richie Suarez, U.S. Army, Atlanta Public Schools resource officer. Daniel Swanson, U.S. Air Force, uncle of Heidi and Taylor Coles. Leo Paul Titchley, U.S. Army colonel, great-grandfather of Mercy Palma. Leo Paul Titchley, U.S. Army captain, grandfather of Mercy Palma. Rose Titchley, U.S. Army and Red Cross, grandmother of Mercy Palma. George Mick Todd, U.S. Navy, father of Savannah and Audrey Todd. Ronnie Waller, U.S. Air Force, father of Dr. Waller. Melvin Ward, U.S. Army Sergeant, great-grandfather of Bo Sipe. James Watkins, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Lieutenant Colonel, grandfather of Bo Sipe. William Whitaker, U.S. Navy, Lieutenant, grandfather of E Rivers alum Anna, William, John, and Elizabeth Nielsen. Sylvan Wiles, U.S. Army, great-grandfather of Bo Sipe. Twain Williams, U.S. Army, uncle of London B. Fields. Brian L. Wilson, U.S. Army, grandfather of Hadley Hall. John Winborn, U.S. Navy, grandfather of Katie and Lily Stower. Wallace Winborn, U.S. Navy, great-grandfather of Katie and Lily Stower.
On behalf of my dad. Okay, how about another resounding round of applause for all of these veterans? Thank you all. Thank you, Daddy, for being here this year. Also, U.S. Air Force veteran. Thanks to all of you and your family members for your sacrifice to our country. It is our honor to recognize and honor you today. A final word of thanks to all the many people who helped put this together. Please mark your calendar for our ceremony next year. Big surprise when that will be, November the 11th, the 10th anniversary. Lastly, I invite you to visit the E-Rivers Book Fair while you're here. It's taking place in room 1111. And in a moment, we're going to line up for what I think is the highlight of the day. If you can stay for just another few minutes, we will be parading through the school so that all of the kids can line up and wave flags and clap and applaud for you. It's really quite fun. So in a minute, we're going to line up for that parade. And at the end of the parade, we welcome you back down, and you can be sure to see your picture in the lobby. We invite our flag bearers to come forward to lead the parade. Veterans, you will line up behind the flag of the branch of service in which you served. 4th and 5th graders, you will go back to your classes now.